They didn't fall in love in a moment. There were no fireworks, no sweeping music, just a quiet bookshop, a woman with too many questions, and a man who had stopped asking them long ago. This is the story of how two strangers found each other, not through grand gestures, but through footnotes in dusty books, and silence that said more than words ever could. Lila moved to the little town of Chestnut Hollow in mid-autumn. She came with 2 suitcases, a few regrets, and a heart that had been quietly bruising for years. She wasn't running from anything, exactly, but she wasn't walking toward anything either. Her days were filled with teaching history to sleepy-eyed high schoolers, and her evenings, well, those were filled with silence. The kind of silence that made you want to fill it with anything, even loneliness. It was on one such evening that she first stepped into the bookshop across the street. The shop was small, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. No music, no frills, just dust, paper, and the faint smell of cinnamon and thyme. Behind the counter stood a man, maybe late 30s, with silver beginning to chase the edges of his hair. He looked like someone who hadn't smiled in a while, but hadn't forgotten how. His name was Theo. He said very little. She said even less. But she came back the next day, and the day after that. Always the same routine. A nod, a soft, good evening, a book purchased with quiet hands and quiet eyes. Then one day, tucked inside the pages of a worn-out poetry collection, she found a note. Just one line, in clean, deliberate handwriting. "This one got me through last winter. Hope it finds you too." She smiled. Not at him, just to herself. The next time she came in, she left a reply between the pages of another book. "Do you always lend your winters to strangers?" And so it began. They never spoke about the notes, but every few days, a new one would appear. Sometimes just a quote, sometimes a question, sometimes a secret they would never say aloud. Through poems, they talked about grief. Through fiction, they spoke about loneliness. Through essays, they whispered dreams too delicate to say out loud. Slowly, carefully, their notes began to stitch something fragile and warm between them. Winter turned to spring. Lila found herself watching the window, waiting for the closed sign to flip over each afternoon. And Theo started stalking the books she'd once mentioned in passing. But still, no real conversations, no confessions, just the safety of paper and ink. Until the day she didn't come. 1 week, then 2. Her seat stayed empty, her books remained unclaimed, and the silence in the shop grew heavier. Then, one morning, Theo found a letter on the counter. No envelope. Just his name written in that now familiar handwriting. It read, "I didn't mean to disappear. I had to go home for a while. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Family things, heavy things. The kind you don't talk about in bookstores. But I missed this place. I missed you. Not the you behind the counter. The you in the margins, the you in the quotes you underlined. The you who made me feel less alone before I even knew your last name." Theo folded the letter and kept it in his wallet. He didn't write back, not right away, but he left a book on the counter with her name on it every day. Just in case. She returned on a rainy Thursday, umbrella in hand, breath caught between nerves and nostalgia. He looked up, and for the first time he smiled. "You're late," he said. That was the first full sentence they ever exchanged. They didn't rush anything. That wasn't their style. Over the months, the notes slowly stopped, because now they were having real conversations. About the books, yes, but also about life, about regrets, about the places they hadn't yet seen. One evening, she stayed until closing. He walked her home, their hands brushed. Nothing happened, and yet everything had changed. They never had a moment. No cinematic kiss in the rain, no sweeping declarations, just a slow unfolding. Like a favorite book you reread not because of the ending, but because of how it makes you feel in the middle. They taught each other that intimacy isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, built in the margins of ordinary days. Two people, one bookshop, and a love story written in silence. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever longed for a love that unfolds gently over time, then maybe, just maybe, you're not looking for a spark. You're waiting for a flame that never burns out. Share this with someone who believes in quiet love. And if you've ever had a connection that began with a book, a look, or a letter, tell us in the comments. Because sometimes, the most powerful love stories don't need to be shouted. They just need to be heard.